If you're new to fishing, one of the best methods to start out using is the method feeder. The method feeder is such a simple and easy rig to tie. It's a rig that is self-hooking. It's one that, you know, it means that the fish is actually going to hook itself. But there are so many key elements to method feeder fishing that need to be right in order for you to catch more fish on that method. It's an anti-tangle rig as well, so it's great for beginners, but just loading the feeder can be a problem for some people. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I load an open style method feeder. So here we've got, this is actually a free running version of the open method feeder. As you can see, that's free running, which complies with just about all fishery rules where a method feeder is allowed. So the best way, or the way that I usually load this feeder, is I like to put a layer in first. What you've got to remember is that the pellets you're going to be putting in here are going to expand when they get in the water. So whilst this is going to be compact when we cast it out, it is going to expand when it's actually out there in your swim. So you've got to just bear that in mind. So I like to put a little bit of a layer at the bottom. Just pop them in there. These are going to swell, so anything above these are going to help to push out of the feeder. So I put one little layer on like that. This is only a 20 gram feeder, so it's not very big. Then I like to lay the hook bait into the feeder itself in that position there, and I do that so that this line is here and it's down and it's out of the way. I don't like the line coming up off the feeder, because I think any fish what comes into it potentially could touch this, and you know, on venues where the fish are shy biting or a little bit cagey, I don't think that's going to help, you know, result in more fish. I'd rather have it down out of the way, then I think it's just not in the equation. So I'll just lay it in like that. Don't forget, if you've got your wafter positioned properly, it's not going to be in that position. It's going to be coming up away from the hook, so it's going to be in the center of the feeder if it's wafting properly, if you've got your rig right. And then all I do then is pop a layer of pellet over the top and squeeze it on. If your pellets are prepared properly, then you should be able to pack these in quite tight, and then they're going to expand really quickly out of the feeder once it's actually out in your swim. Now there are different things you can do. You could put more on than that and completely hide the actual hook bait, but I like to leave it visual like that to start with, and if I don't catch, I can always try it by covering it up completely. Some people actually would then peel back some pellets from the hook bait to expose it even more. Alright, now these pellets are, you know, these have been soaked properly, so they're going to expand quite quickly. However, one thing you need to be careful of is that depending on the hook bait that you're using, be careful how you pack the feeder when you're squeezing it in. If you're using a soft bait like a bit of corn, or you might be using dead maggots or something like that, be very, very careful, because either A, you can bust the bait or break the bait, so it's not going to be as good as what you might want it to be. But there is also a danger of pushing it actually off the bayonet. If you're using a bayonet, sometimes when you're packing that in like that, you're pushing that bait out and away from the hook where the hook is, and it can actually come off the bayonet. Alright, so be very, very careful when you're doing that. Next thing is just trim it off. You know, these feeders are designed the way that they are because they're really aerodynamic, and certainly if you're casting at range, you don't want any pellets or anything like that hanging off here, because what that's going to do is when it goes out into your swim, it's either going to come off the feeder and you're going to end up with bait spread over a little bit of an area, or worse still, any bits hanging over here could dislodge the rest of this here, and that could all come off as the feeder's falling through the water, or on impact as it hits the water. So you want it to be presented like that on the bottom. And the final thing, if you are just getting used to method feeder fishing, if you're getting confidence in your setup and that sort of thing, one thing that I still even do now to this day is that when I'm using pellets that I haven't used before or anything like that, you can simply test the feeder beforehand. So you could do this on your bait tray, so just lower it in, and what this will do is this will give you an idea of how quick your pellets on that specific day are actually expanding and emptying from the feeder. Now I've packed these in really tight, and I mean, it's only 1 degree today. It's very cold. The water is cold. There was a sharp frost last night, and as you can see, they're still in there now. Now I would rather have them in a little bit too tight, or have them in there longer, they're not long enough, because that means that these are going to be intact when, you know, when the feeder hits the bottom. As you can see, that top layer now is just starting to break down a little bit. But I'm fishing today where I've literally been having between 20 and 30 minute casts. So I want to make sure that this is completely intact when it hits the bottom. And I would rather sit there for, you know, an extra minute, 2 minutes, knowing that it is actually intact. And they're just starting to expand now, as you can see, the odd air bubble coming out. And as those pellets expand, 1 or 2 of them are going to just go over the edge of the feeder, as you can see what's happening now. And within about another minute or so, I would say that all that layer, top layer, the second layer that I put on, is all gone soft. And that will be soft enough for a fish to suck in, and then ultimately suck in the hook bait as well. And the hook will be free to go straight into the fish's mouth and hopefully hook the fish. So as you can see now, we're coming up to about a minute and a half, and all those pellets now are soft. I mean, that's actually fishing now. And if this was a fish to come in now, obviously I would leave it longer than this. You know, I'd be quite happy waiting longer than this, but that's fishing already. And if I just disturb them slightly, there we go. So fish could suck in that hook bait, and then that's when they ultimately suck in the hook as well. Now the hook's laying flat there now, so let's just disturb them a bit more, just speed it up, speed the process up a little bit. And there we go. And that's your presentation. The hook isn't quite flat. Ideally I'd like that hook to be laying absolutely flat, but again, matching the wafter, I mean, that's wafting nicely now. The hook isn't quite flat. I'd prefer it if that hook was bang flat. So all I could do is put a smaller wafter on, so that the wafter's not lifting the hook up quite as much as that, or I could just cut a little bit off that wafter so it's not quite as buoyant. But that would still easily hook you a fish. But as you can see, that's just wafting nicely now. Really nice presentation, and it stayed right in the feeder. That's the ultimate presentation. I mean, you know, just be careful your hook length's not springing out away from the feeder. That's staying right in the in the bed of feed, in that target area where the pellets are. By getting these key elements right in your method feeder fishing, it's ultimately going to result in more fish on the bank. So I hope you've really found this latest addition to the Fishing Basics series useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more videos from this channel. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.